In the face of death, the inevitability of it, the reality of it, what enduring satisfaction is there to be found in a life such as this? Such that everything I've known, everything I've experienced, everything that I've accumulated might jolly well come to an end. At the end of the day, it might all be for nothing.
I see, like, one has seen the seriousness of it, the relevance of it, the futility of it, the inevitability of it.
Mm-hmm. The necessity of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So actually the fact is that as human beings, we don't know what death is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And not knowing what death is, not understanding death, we can't meaningfully put the question of whether there's anything beyond it.
When you say we don't know what death is, do you mean we have no knowledge of it?
Actually, we have no knowledge of it.
Okay. Okay.
To take the human case, just in the interest of simplicity,
mm-hmm.
I have a relationship to a particular consciousness. My mother, my father, grandparents, a friend, a pet. And
Can of worms.
Suddenly, the continuity of that consciousness is extinguished. If one is aware of oneself, if consciousness is aware of itself, without choice, without direction, without motive, in that very observation, consciousness is emptying itself of its content. Consciousness is its content. And so, in emptying out its own content, consciousness is participating in its own ending. And so, with that ending, which is the reality of death, there is that sense of care, compassion, love, and so a completely different quality to our way of living.
Like it's rather romantic, like what we want in human relationship, really.
And also in reality, in relationship to the reality of death, one should question, what is the consciousness that is ending? Is the consciousness that is ending unique, private, exclusive?
So, why have we gathered today? What are we here for?
Unless you had something in mind, I thought we might take the day, or at least go as far into it as we can, to talk about the question of death.
It seems terribly important. Highly relevant. Maybe the form less so, but
the two of us across the table?
Yeah. Like maybe discussing death in this way is less relevant. But I at least strongly feel that death itself as a topic seems highly relevant to everybody.
I really do think it's one of the most important questions.
And I think it's undeniably so. Unlike things we've talked about in the past, which have even rather important things, I think, like love, that a lot of people want to talk about universally, I think can be denied, can be rejected, can be theorized away, can be put to the side. But death is like, it's a different game.
And yet, despite this starkness of the subject...
Starkness? What do you mean? Stark.
The inevitable presence of that thing called death, the undeniable reality of it. Despite the fact that all of us will come upon this thing, or perhaps it may come upon us, one day or another, somehow we manage to avoid it.
What do you mean avoid it?
Such that
we're still living? That able to sit around and talk about it?
While living, we don't confront this question of death. We don't consider the whole depths and implications of this reality.
Is would what you're saying be different from? Well, I'm sure many acknowledge the presence of that. Maybe a loved one passes away. Maybe my pet gets into an accident, and
I may acknowledge the reality of death,
yes,
intellectually or even emotionally, but I don't see, ponder, think over the whole relevance and significance of that thing called death. I go into the question, if I do at all, only superficially.
But I grieve very profoundly. I hurt so deeply.
But
I'm suggesting that one might.
If I grieve, I don't question what it is that I grieve.
Right. It makes me sad. The memory of that. I'm afraid to look into it. I don't want it. I don't want the death.
And I think this is the issue, sir, is this overwhelming and paralyzing sense of fear.
Yes.
That lies, if not at the very heart, very close to the heart of this subject.
So we want to talk about that, or we want to pierce into the question as deeply as we can here today. And it seems rather important. And it seems like the reasons for which we might not have done so in the past, that is peer into it, seems very obvious. It's scary, it's paralyzing,
I think if one approaches the question with a certain honesty, it may be obvious. But we might not approach this question honestly. I'm not saying it's so, I'm just making a suggestion. Such that in various ways we may rationalize death. Intellectually, through belief, emotionally, through some form of superstition.
I see, like I develop, in my education, I develop a way of understanding death that lets me sleep at night.
A vast network of escape so that I can function in my daily life.
I see.
Because to confront the reality of death, the horror of this thing, demands all my energy, all my capacity. But I'm not prepared, willing, interesting to go into the question. And so I must find a way of setting it aside.
I'm not sure. You said going into the question would take all of my energy.
To confront the question of death, I must be tremendously alone. I may rationalize death in various ways. Mm-hmm. I did not exist before I was born. What's the problem with not existing after I die? So there's a belief inference. Or various religious beliefs about the subject. Mm. Eternal life, reincarnation. Mm. And so, in some construction or other, I find some comfort. Mm. I may gain a certain acceptance, find a certain solace, because it's inevitable. And so, resisting very strongly for a great amount of time, slowly that resistance may ease. But all of this is something less than a confrontation with the thing.
By confrontation, you mean like a meeting? Yes. Unless we mean like a brawl. Confrontation.
A fight.
Yeah, it is. In fact, you're saying, if I may, in fact, I think that you're saying we busy ourselves fighting, so we never meet it. Confront, stripped of its perhaps colloquial connotations, would mean like for there to be a front, like a face.
Mm-hmm. You may battle with death. Perhaps for a while you might win.
Well,
but eventually that thing will come for you.
I don't even know if I want to say that. Who might?
You fight to survive, to cling on to this very life.
I see.
In the end, it will come. You know, in the past we've discussed the unsatisfactoriness inherent to our way of living. And talking over this question, you've put to me the question of someone who says, I don't find life unsatisfying, such that I find meaning in my relationships.
Like as a whole. Like there may be partial dissatisfaction. But when I consider it all together, I'm rather okay.
I find meaning in my relationships.
Yep.
I find beauty in the natural world. I find love amongst my friends and family. I enjoy the work that I do. I don't struggle to meet my basic demands, fairly healthy. Well, more or less, I feel I live a fairly good life. And one may put answers to a question like that to a point. What makes you say life is so unsatisfying the way we are? I don't see evidence of this dissatisfactory nature you two jokers are talking about all the time.
Are we the jokers?
Yes,
I
sir.
see. Sorry, I was still caught up on the phrasing of the you could.
One can respond to something like this up to a point,
I see.
such that one may point out the way of living is still fragmentary. The fragments may be more in congruence with one another. The fragments may be a little bit more balanced, cooperative, integrated, but basically still fragmentary, and from that fragmentation, conflict. And so in this way, still disordered and disharmonious, although perhaps a little bit more healthy, a little bit more sane than your neighbor. To this, in turn, one can also respond. They say conflict is okay. I accept the conflict. It affords me certain degree of interest, stimulation.
I like winning.
Variety.
I'm so sorry.
So they say, I recognize the conflict inherent in my way of living, but I'll continue to live that way. One says, very well, enjoy it. If you want to live this way, live this way. Do it earnestly, sincerely, with a sense of vitality, honesty, be critical, questioning. But if you want to live this way, live this way.
Well, nobody can stop you. I mean, fundamentally. A tyrant might come along and change your whole way of life. That's not the kind of...
You're worth considering.
Oh, well, of course.
There is a challenge.
Of course.
The things you find satisfaction in.
Man has fought many wars for external freedoms. Countless. Still going.
What you find satisfaction in may not be available to you. You may be prevented access to the objects of your satisfaction.
You want to drive to the grocery store, but the oil prices are too high.
And so there are these various challenges, but I may evaluate the state of the world, the state of myself, and say, I'm ready to meet these challenges. I have the necessary resources, support network, social structure, etc., etc. And so in this way, one says, I continue to live as I am. Please leave me jolly well alone. And to this, I think one can say very little. But the answer to a question such as this, the answer to a position such as this, is not a verbal response. I think death is the deep answer. Such that if one confronts the reality of death, one sees the undeniable fact that in the face of death, there is no enduring satisfaction in our way of living.
You're not suggesting that. To one who says, jolly well, leave me alone. One poses the question, what will you do about that? This is not what you're saying, is it?
That is the question, sir.
I see.
This is why I say I don't think we confront this question. Such that deep consideration, thinking over, pondering the question of death demands a reconsideration reevaluation, recontextualization of our whole lives.
Such that one may begin to take the question seriously in their daily life.
Such that the reality of death is relevant to my daily existence.
Not a future problem. Not a... But it is outside of my control. It is outside of my control. There's an advantage there. Like, there's already like an embedded instinct that I can't really do anything about it. Like, I can't fight against it continuously. I will lose. It's almost not even a question. I see, but then there have been temptations of ideas of living forever. I see. So it's not really a closed book, even in that sense. What is the question? One is partially dissatisfied with life, but overall content. Sir, please leave me alone. And the question that they're faced with is, what about that? What are we asking with this question?
In the face of death, the inevitability of it, the reality of it, what enduring satisfaction is there to be found in a life such as this? Such that everything I've known, everything I've experienced, everything that I've accumulated might jolly well come to an end. At the end of the day, it might all be for nothing.
I see, and you're phrasing it this way because are you trying to see the end of the chain? Like going up, one might say, well, it won't be for nothing. I'll have lived a okay life and I'll transfer my inheritance to the next generation. I'll leave the world better than when I entered it. But when you say all this accumulated wealth, as it were, may come to an end, are you trying to pierce through to the end of the chain?
The question that I've put here, we may also meet partially. I may say, death is inevitable, I'll live a jolly good life.
I see. Everything's going to die anyway. Let me enjoy what I think I can to the highest intensity that I can in this life. Yes. I see, and you're suggesting this would be a partial meeting?
Partial meeting.
Okay. Why would that be a partial meeting? If we may pose that question. I see. Well, I guess the question I'm asking is, what does it mean to fully confront death? What are we saying? What are we trying to say?
Give me a moment, I'll come to it.
Yes.
Partially meeting this question, I might also say, death is inevitable, life is of value, I'll live as long as I can. I'll take great care. My health, mentally, physically, right amount of sleep, right food.
I see.
Not too much stress.
I'll live longer.
This is another partial response
right.
to the inevitability of death.
It delays the fact.
Or like you're saying, I might say, what I've accumulated will come to an end for me, but it will continue for others.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will be a little bit less self-centered. Concerned for the welfare of mankind, for future generations.
Oh dear Lord. There's just so many implications in what we're saying. Apologies.
You follow? I may say, it's inevitable, let me not consider it. I may say, it's inevitable, let me put it off for as long as I can.
Or let me consider it a little bit.
I may say, it's inevitable, let me live for something that will continue after I die.
That I think is greater than myself. But then I begin identifying with what I think is greater than myself.
Always a partial response. If I live for the future of humanity, what is the value in this? It will also come to an end. If I say, let me not think about tomorrow, let me just think about today, why not just this minute? Just this second? You follow? Future be damned.
Living like there's no tomorrow.
Which may be the most destructive way of living. Yeah, perhaps not. So, we respond to the reality of death partially. Because death is, or represents, the end of knowledge.
If I may, to give priority to death, could we say, this might just be a very technical point, but could we say, like the end of knowledge represents death? As in, what I'm trying to do is have all the meaning be stored in the word death, whatever that means. And then by represent, we mean representation. So it seems like the end of knowledge is once removed from whatever we mean by death. And I think the task of the binding is you use the word is. And so there will be some binding there, but it may be a very technical point.
No, sir, because what I'm familiar with is knowledge. I'm not familiar with death. I don't know the meaning of that thing.
I see. And so death represents the ending of knowledge, or the end of knowledge. Is that okay? I see. I see. Already I'm using knowledge to carefully construct a systematic understanding of death and linguistically representing it. I see.
Death means or represents the end of knowledge. And yet we're always responding to this thing with knowledge. And so always partially.
Right.
I hope that in the foregoing discussion we have, somewhat at least, laid the groundwork for going into this question, such that we might see the importance gravity, seriousness of this question.
I see. At least like an entry point.
Uh-huh.
Not, I seriously doubt that, if I may, just for myself, that I've done any work for somebody to look at this question at any depth. But just an entry point, I think.
Yes, sir.
I'd be ecstatic.
Yes, sir.
just a point of contact.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if we've come to the point of entering this question, how shall we proceed?
I see, like, one has seen the seriousness of it, the relevance of it, the futility of it, the inevitability of it.
The necessity of it.
What is this business you're going on about? It means or represents the end of knowledge. Yeah, so might be an entry point. Like the whole discussion we had about it. Like, what does any of that mean?
For thousands of years, man has talked about or imagined, theorized, speculated about life after death in some form or another. And there have also been those who have dismissed all that talk as a bunch of religious nonsense. So actually the fact is that as human beings, we don't know what death is. And not knowing what death is, not understanding death, we can't meaningfully put the question of whether there's anything beyond it.
When you say we don't know what death is, do you mean we have no knowledge of it?
Actually, we have no knowledge of it.
Okay.
We may think we have knowledge of it. One may have certain experiences. Contacting dead relatives. Certain forms of synchronicity. A feeling of the character of someone who has passed. One might have various experiences.
I see. One may have near-death experiences. There's always qualifier. Yes.
But
I see. Perhaps if one was to experience death, then they'd just be dead.
Dealing with the experiences of this kind always amounts to some form of guesswork. Because they may be simply varying kinds of illusion. So actually the fact is we don't know what death is.
I see. And our recognition of that experience would have been built from previous forms of knowledge. So in fact, that near-death experience is factually not death, because the very mechanism by which one is seeing it as an experience is within the continuity of the previous iteration.
All knowledge we recognize about so-called death is recognized in terms of the knowledge we've acquired while living.
So how are we, what are we talking about?
So it might have nothing to do with the question of death.
But what are we talking about? If there's no knowledge of it, factually,
there's the reality of death.
Thank you. Please.
Such that I've had various relationships, people, animals, friends, family.
I see. One has seen it. Whatever it is.
at least the effects of it from the outside.
I say directly or indirectly. One has felt its stamp.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I'm speaking poetically, but like its effects. Okay. There's the reality of it. Not as a piece of knowledge, not as an extraordinary experience. Not quite like this.
Because to take the human case, just in the interest of simplicity, I have a relationship to a particular consciousness. My mother, my father, grandparents, a friend, a pet. And
Can of worms.
suddenly the continuity of that consciousness is extinguished.
Not completely though. Like it's shattered.
The continuity of that particular form, that particular character, particular arrangement has ended.
Like I think I won't be able to have new memories of them. Something like this. Not too happy with that wording. But
So, apart from the death of the body, which actually I think to us is fairly unimportant, the significance of death is the ending of consciousness with its continuity.
I see. And then perhaps the death of the body may have some significance.
The object of our fear, of our terror, of our anxiety, deep-rooted psychological anxiety, I think not the death of the body, but the end of the continuity of our consciousness. Such that if I had knowledge that my consciousness would continue after death, maybe a little bit of fear, a little bit of concern, perhaps I don't know where I will go, but if the continuity of myself remains intact, it's no great problem. But the ending of consciousness, which is the ending of myself, this I think is our great source of terror.
It is. When you say that typically the death of the body is rather like a set aside, I would like to form a better question than what do you mean by that? But what do you mean by that?
Yeah. Sir, it may be a totally wrong way of viewing things, such that there may be no consciousness apart from the body. But we think in some way the consciousness is separable from the body.
Yes, this is.
If my body dies but I continue, it's okay.
Yeah, like this thought exists in the mind.
The body also has a certain response to death.
Oh boy.
If you tried to kill an animal, probably it will resist you. But that encounter is quite a different thing from the relationship consciousness has to death. Because in being aware of its own existence, in being able to reflect upon itself, consciousness becomes aware of the fact that it will come to an end. Becomes aware of the reality of death.
I see, in some ways, the death of the body is more of an open-ended question. One may begin to question the arrangement of the body, the configuration. But how can consciousness inquire into its own ending?
If one is aware of oneself, if consciousness is aware of itself, without choice, without direction, without motive, in that very observation, consciousness is emptying itself of its content. Consciousness is its content. And so, in emptying out its own content, consciousness is participating in its own ending.
What is consciousness doing to empty out its own content?
Just to be aware without choice. Without direction.
Just to watch the movement of that knowledge that is there, which involves the recognition.
Seeing the irrelevance of the existing knowledge to meet the present situation, to meet things as they are, not referring to the existing knowledge in order to confront the various challenges of life. And so, just giving awareness attention.
If I recognize that I'm angry, potentially this is like the last step. That is, there may be a lot of content to watch before the recognition that I'm angry takes place.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Being ever vigilant about that whole energy and that movement. With also the urge to recognize it as anger.
I don't know if I want to use this word vigilant, sir, because what am I vigilant about? Do I exercise vigilance with regard to myself?
Right.
Vigilance.
It's not as though one is a guard. protecting the temple. Or
Mhm.
yeah.
But just to be aware.
Yes. Yeah. I'm
Aware of oneself, one's consciousness, which is its knowledge with its limitations. And so being aware of the limitations of knowledge, not depending on knowledge, gaining new knowledge of itself, which is emptying out the old knowledge, negating the old knowledge.
like watching that mechanism which decides the words to use, but doesn't hold on to that choices. Unless like there's value, but then it can be talked out.
Observing one's thinking, feeling, perception, sensation, reactions, the whole content of their consciousness.
Yeah. I see. It has its own discipline.
Discipline which comes not from conformity,
Because there's nothing to conform to.
not from effort, not a discipline dictated by thought, but discipline which comes from order.
I see, which is like demanded necessarily in the face of that.
And see in this, sir, the remarkable thing, living with the reality of death, participating in its own ending, in that consciousness has no fear of death. Fear only comes when one separates death from the now. Fear implies comparison. Comparison implies time. Psychological movement of time is dependence on knowledge.
Right. I mean,
if there's no dependence on knowledge, therefore no movement of psychological time, in that there's no fear.
well, like it's not fear. When you say there's no fear, like has it been eliminated? Is it gone? Extinguished completely?
Where there is the psychological movement of time, inevitably there will be fear.
Is there no fear to speak of?
In that moment, there's no fear.
Okay. Yeah, by in that moment, you mean in that observation?
So there is a living with the reality of death, day by day, minute by minute, hour by hour, in which there is order, learning, discipline. And so, with that ending, which is the reality of death, there is that sense of care, compassion, love, and so a completely different quality to our way of living.
Like it's rather romantic, like what we want in human relationship, really.
So that I relate with things as they are now, not always in terms of what they were yesterday. Not limiting the other to our knowledge of them, which is our experience.
Right. if there's that trauma, that hatred, that anger, there's responsibility to that, which isn't merely a continuation of that. It's, I don't know, it just sounds so romantic.
Whether the movement of thought is noble or ignoble, it's still a movement of the past.
Yeah, it's besides the point.
And also in reality, in relationship to the reality of death, one should question, what is the consciousness that is ending?
Yes, that's a good question.
Is the consciousness that is ending unique, private, exclusive?
I'm wondering if there's a I'm wondering if there's a better way to word the question. But like, I actually don't know what word we could use instead of consciousness. Like, consciousness is self-consciousness. I think self is a very readily available word, more so than consciousness. Is one's sense of self narrow, restricted,
individual?
I question it. I see. We think of ourselves as individuals. But I've read somewhere that the meaning of that word, individual, means indivisible. And so, if we think of ourselves as many individuals, in this we're already divided. We're already, in fact, not indivisible. And so, pick him up by the pants and kick him out the window. I mean, what are we saying? I'm an individual. I'm a sovereign. This is like, are you?
This is our education, our training, our conditioning. Because
Getting excited now. I gotta calm down a little bit.
we have our own peculiar tastes, likes, dislikes, forms of prejudice, belief, various objects of interest, fear. We find pleasure in various things. And being concerned always with the particular objects of consciousness, we see this vast difference in the world. But basically, the nature and structure of consciousness, the basic contents of consciousness are the same. Although we may have different beliefs, we all have beliefs. Although we may have different fears, we all experience fear. All of us think in terms of like and dislike.
Although we may all worship different gods. No, I've said too much. I've said too much.
And in one way or another, whatever I like, whatever I dislike, whatever I'm afraid of, whatever I want, whatever I'm interested in some way it's been put in there by the society. So the society is not different from myself. The individual and social consciousness are not different consciousnesses.
At the base of it, at the ground. And if I may, you were saying that in relationship to death, part of this consideration would be, what is it that's ending? And so not any particular death of particular objects of consciousness, but wholesomely, the entirety, the totality of consciousness. Well, what does it mean for that to be ending and to participate in that ending? Not to say that we could if we wanted to, but not to say that it would be sufficient to adopt like a global perspective.
Perhaps necessary.
It seems like a step in the right direction. I don't know if I could word it that way.
To consider things holistically, one must be able to take a global perspective. And yet a global perspective is not sufficient to consider things holistically.
I just meant that in the sense of, like, it may be a very good thing, actually, to have this perspective, but you might upgrade it once more and say, not global perspective, universal mind. And then, you might go one step further and say, no, cosmic resident. But without like the frivolousness of it all.
Yes,
that's all I mean.
Not without.
I don't want to condemn those who are genuinely taking a global perspective. Yeah.
Without going into all of this mystical stuff, rather just acknowledge, see, recognize basic, simple psychological fact that the world that exists is the world that we've put together, and also the so-called individuals that we identify with have been put together and are a response to the very same world.
Yeah, like the structure of the brain is common to mankind. It's like the human brain.
And so there's no fundamental division between the inner movement and the outer movement.
Although your brain and my brain may have different personal histories.
Each brain is unique. But the brain is not unique to you or me. It's the brain.
Yeah, like the uniqueness doesn't mean there's a
unique does not imply isolated.
Like I was going to illustrate, like unique does not mean like a endless chasm between you and I.
Uniqueness is not.
Although that feeling might exist, the isolation, loneliness, all of this might. But if you observe it, I don't know. I'm getting impatient.
So, fundamentally, actually, there's no division between the inner and the outer.
Yes, sir.
But rather, the outer acting on the inner, and the inner responding to the outer, shaping it, molding it in various ways. And so there's this back and forth, in and out.
And so there's a division to speak of.
Like a tide, a current.
Yep. But we're saying that it's not mutually. I'm so sorry. They're not mutually exclusive.
Yes, sir.
The uniqueness and the aloneness. It's not mutually exclusive. I can be unique and one. Oh, that's basically the same thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it coming across? Those of you who are listening.
So thought has made this division between the inner and the outer, the individual and the society, myself and the rest of mankind. And in this division, thought has put together this horrible world we find around us today. But the fact is, there's no fundamental division, such that my consciousness is not exclusive. My consciousness is not private. My consciousness is not essentially individual, but rather my consciousness is the consciousness of the rest of mankind. So death is not an individual affair. Death is the ending of the continuity in a particular form of that human consciousness. And yet, if at the point of death, I've not emptied out the content of my consciousness, the violence, the misery, the confusion,
Right.
that content carries on.
Right.
And so, understanding even the reality of death comes with a tremendous sense of responsibility.
You're saying there's work, which isn't yours or mine. Right. Which isn't yours or mine, but nonetheless must be done in my daily life. That's an absolved one of responsibility to see that it's not their work.
I wonder if it might be worth stopping there and coming back next time to see if we can discuss death itself. We've discussed the reality of death. The reality of death which consciousness can participate in. The reality of death that consciousness can investigate. The reality of death that consciousness can learn about. But the fact of death, the actuality of that thing, you follow, which is the permanent cessation in consciousness. Not a structure within consciousness, not a particular form of knowledge, not the present state of my knowledge structure, but the permanent cessation of the entire structure of consciousness itself.
Like the end of that work?